We are in a society where change does happen, and it's our responsibility, if we want to stay relevant, that we embrace that change or at least deal with it in our lives in some form or another. Now, one of the things that I think is most interesting, fastest growing audiences that I coach is people that are 70 years old and older. AI is artificial. It's not intelligent. Yeah. When you're done entering your prompt, add this little phrase to the end and you will just massively change all your results. It can logically work through things. It has lots of logic, but it's not intuitive. And that's something that AI can never have. So it's so important that we bring that to the table. We're going to find that our work may evolve a bit, but I believe it's going to allow us to operate even more again in that zone of genius.
Hey guys, I'm Aubrey. On this show, we explore the intersection of mysticism, technology, art, and transpersonal experience. I'm an entrepreneur, author, and cosmic advisor, covering human consciousness and the larger forces shaping our collective destiny. Welcome to The Infinite Drop. You guys, today is amazing. We have Jonathan Mast on. He is an AI consultant and a coach on a mission to help people unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence. His work is all about empowering individuals and businesses with the knowledge and skills they need to navigate this rapidly evolving landscape. When we first connected, I was struck by Jonathan's genuine enthusiasm for sharing his knowledge. He's not just passionate about AI, he's driven by a real desire to help people adapt and thrive. And that's what this whole season is about on the show. We clicked immediately, especially when it came to our shared perspective on how the workforce will inevitably shift as AI becomes more prevalent. With over 370,000 members in his AI prompting Facebook group and another 150,000 followers spread across Instagram, LinkedIn, X, TikTok, and YouTube, Jonathan has become a go-to resource for anyone wanting to leverage AI more effectively. And what really caught my attention was his unique take on how age and experience are actually huge advantages in this technological wave. It's a perspective I think everyone tuning in will benefit from. Jonathan, welcome to The Infinite Drop.
Well, thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks. So AI isn't just automating tasks, it's reshaping entire job functions. And fears of job displacement are rampant right now. What parallels can you draw from previous workforce shifts? And what about this time in history makes it unique from those previous evolutions?
Good question. Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest fears I hear out there is, people are like, oh my gosh, we're all going to lose our jobs. And I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I really don't believe that's the case. If we look back historically, and I'm a bit of a student of history, when the printing press came out, everybody said, oh my goodness, nobody's going to have to work anymore and I wasn't there. I'm old, but I'm not that old. So, then the internal combustion engine came out. And again, I wasn't there, but I read history and people were like, oh my gosh, the engine's going to be able to do everything. Nobody's going to have jobs anymore. We're not going to have anything to do anymore. And then fast forward to when I was there, as I was getting into the workforce, I'm quite a bit older than you are. And I remember PCs showing up on desktops and they were replacing calculators and adding machines and typewriters. And I was like, oh my goodness, with the PC, we're going to be able to do so much. Nobody's going to have any work to do. And then the internet came out and AI is similar. It's different, but it's very similar in that I do think that there will be some workers that get displaced. But like with the computer and the engine and all that, there are going to be those workers that decide to ignore the change that's happening. We are in a society where change does happen, and it's our responsibility, if we want to stay relevant, that we embrace that change or at least deal with it in our lives in some form or another. And I think AI is going to be exactly that same way. I don't think most people are going to lose their job to AI. In fact, I actually think AI, artificial intelligence, is kind of a misnomer. I actually just made a post on my socials a moment ago, and that's AI is artificial. It's not intelligent yet, because I really don't believe that it is intelligent yet. It's a great predictive technology, but it's not truly intelligent yet. So I don't think that anybody who embraces it is going to have any job problems or that at all. That's part of my mission, is to help those people understand that.
What do you mean when you say it's a great predictive technology? I didn't totally understand what you meant there.
Yeah, great question. Sorry about that. I probably should have explained a little more. AI has been trained essentially on every book, on every piece of writing, and on tons of music and all that type of stuff. So it's been trained on more data than certainly any of us have been trained on. And as a result of that, as we're asking it things, it does a very good job of predicting what the next word is that we're going to need, or predicting how to respond to something based upon the knowledge that it's gained. But it's still all zeros and ones, and it isn't sentient. So it can't think through a problem. We're getting closer to that. As we record this, we have agentic AI out, which can actually take an objective, put together a path, and follow that objective. But it's still very static logic. It's not dynamic as we as humans are. AI can't be inspired like you and I can be. It just is not a possibility at this point in time. And so I think, again, oftentimes people put too much into it. And when I say predictive, it's really about the fact that it's less intelligent and it's more predictive in how it does. So we can ask it to write an SOP for us, and it can predict what would be the steps that would fit into that, and it can write that standard operating procedure. We can ask it to write a song for us, and it can predict, based upon other songs it's been trained on in music, what types of things to do. But it's never going to hear a song and then go, ooh, I had an idea. I want to create a new song about that. That's not what AI does.
Wow. Okay. Great distinction there. I hadn't thought of that before. I was actually, and when you talked about agentic AI, I was at Vanderbilt University's AI Days conference maybe a month ago. And I had been wanting to learn how to build an AI agent. And I sort of went to the deep end on YouTube initially and watched like it was called How to Build an AI Agent Army. And I got down the rabbit hole. I mean, I planned out all the steps, like you said, SOPs for people at home that don't know what that means. It just means standard operating procedures. So I'd gone through with this developer on the YouTube and mapped everything out and started to build it. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like, what is my use case for this?
Sure.
So at Vanderbilt's AI Days, one of the graduate professors there, she was leading a room of us through how to build a simple AI agent just for free with some of the free tools out there. And what strikes me is, like you said, you can go, like I can go into ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to learn how to fly a kite. What are the steps to do that? And it will give me some steps for how to fly a kite. And so it seems like if you gave it a task and said, hey, go check my email, that it would be able to do that. It can tell you how you can go check email, but it's not going to go off on its own and check the email. So you have to build in these SOPs or these standard operating procedures step by step and tell it what to do and connect things through different technology platforms. So thanks for that distinction there on the predictive part. I hadn't thought of that completely yet. So you've said that people with more life experience and wisdom will be better able to leverage AI's potential.
Yeah.
I've been feeling that too, and I wrote a series about it recently, but why do you think that is, and how can younger generations bridge the gap? That's kind of the second part of the question.
Sure. Well, I do believe that fundamentally AI amplifies skill and experience. So it's great to have a white beard like I do and be an old guy because I have more skill and experience. And probably for the first time in history, a technology has got shown up on the scene that I at 55 can have more value out of than my son at 17 can. Doesn't mean he can't have value out of it. He absolutely can, but there's a difference there. And that's just because I have more skill and experience for AI to amplify. And I do really believe that's essentially what AI does for us today. And so I think, if we're, in the old days when the PC came out or when the internet came out, it was always 20-somethings really embraced it, 30-somethings kind of embraced it, 40-somethings went along for the ride, and 50-plus was like, I just can't wait for retirement. And I'm probably generalizing. But with AI now, one of the things that I think is most interesting, as you know, I do a lot of coaching, and one of the most fastest growing parts or audiences that I coach is people that are 70 years old and older. They're loving the fact that they can take AI and now take their experience and their skills and use it in so many ways. To the second part, it doesn't mean that if you're young, you can't use AI. You absolutely can. In fact, I think over time, you will learn to leverage it better. My youngest, he was around the internet, has always existed in his life. He doesn't know a world without the internet. I obviously do. I was around long before that. And I think that will benefit our younger generation if they're taught to use AI and not discouraged from it. Right now, a whole separate topic is I think our schools are making a massive mistake in telling everybody that AI is essentially evil and we shouldn't use it because the only thing a student could use it for was to cheat. When in reality, yes, they can use it to cheat, but there's so much more that they can use it from to learn and to expand their knowledge and to do so at a pace that I was never able to do in school, and that candidly, most people were never able to do in school. And so I think that regardless of your age, AI can be a tremendous asset. It's a matter of using it in ways, again, that allow you to amplify your learning, amplify your skills, amplify your experience, and really embrace that to take advantage of a tool that lets you get more done and add more value faster.
Could not have said it better myself at all. On the last, not the last episode, it was episode 22, I believe, of the show. I was talking with Amy Kelly and Shannon Morse. Amy Kelly is a female CEO at an AI company in San Francisco, and Shannon is helping to train that AI model for them. And as Shannon and I were talking, we started going back and forth on how AI feels really intuitive. It feels like a different type of technology. And for me as well, as I've started using it, I thought this is the first time where you don't need to do a lot of clicks or dragging or no code. Or in the past, I think it's been overwhelming for people. I'll be working with people that have more experience than me, or working with my mom sometimes on the computer, and I can see there's a lot of clicks and a lot of background knowledge that I have that when I start sitting with someone who doesn't, I realize, wow, I do know these machines or how this technology works on a really deep level, working in the tech industry for so long. And with AI, it's very intuitive. It's language. You can literally talk to it in a microphone a lot of times, or just type out what you want, and you don't need to have all of that technical wizardry or background. So I love that it does feel more accessible. And it was so cool hearing that a lot of your clients are 70 plus, because it is so exciting. There's so much you can learn and so much you can do and so many dots you connect once you get in and start understanding the different use cases that are available.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's part of it. We're so early into the AI adoption right now. I know a lot of people ask me regularly, Jonathan, did I miss it? Is it too late? No, we're still so early in its adoption and being used that we haven't even seen a lot of the ways it can be used. And I think one of the things I just want to encourage everybody, regardless of your age, is embrace it as a tool that can help you learn. It can help you dig deeper into things that you're thinking about. I'm an ADD visionary entrepreneur, so I've got ideas every day, and it helps me go through those and brainstorm. It also is a great way for me to share knowledge and to figure out how I can use that knowledge in a way that benefits those around me, because of the fact that it, again, can help provide perspective, it can help provide guidance, and candidly, it does so in the blink of an eye that allows us to get so many more things done. And the other reality is just there's some things we don't love to do, and AI can do some of those things for us. In my case, it's writing those emails that require 15 to 20 minutes of pondering so that I say things the right way, but draw the appropriate boundaries and do those. And as a business leader, those are things that we all have to do on occasion. Those emails I am terrible at because I don't have the patience to write them. With AI, I don't need the patience. I literally can say, here's the email that I got. Here's the way I'd like to respond. Please help me write this in a professional manner that reflects my tone and style. And if I've trained it on my tone and style, which is really easy to do, then it's going to respond and sound a lot like what Jonathan would sound like after 30 minutes of pondering, but it's going to do it in about 12 seconds.
I saw you had a clip, I think it was on YouTube Shorts, where you were just talking about that. I don't know if it was a recent video or if I'd scrolled back through your content, but if you guys are out there listening and wondering, how can I have my emails go faster? Jonathan has some great clips up about what he just talked about, so you can check that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Your content's so awesome. It's so digestible. It's fast. You mentioned the ADD, so I can see like you're firing off different topics. There's great keywords. People can find what they're looking for easily, and you're on all the bigs. So any channel people are on or any platform people like to engage in, you've got a presence there, which is wonderful. So companies are out there, they're creating new AI-focused roles like prompt engineers. But for the everyday person, what should they be asking themselves around how to redefine the unique value they bring to employers or clients in a world where it might feel like they're competing with AI?
I hear that all the time. As I mentioned, I think earlier, it's one of my core desires is to help teams understand that AI is not a threat to them, but it is actually something that can make their life so much better. The biggest thing I think that most employer or employees need to learn, and candidly, most employers at this point as well, is that how to talk to AI. It is first and foremost, it's not sentient. So I'm going to use the word, it's like any relationship that communication matters because I do believe it does, but it's not sentient. So it's not going to understand everything you do, but it is based on natural language. In fact, they're called large language models that use natural language processing. And that means that when we communicate with it, much like you and I would communicate right here, we're going to find that things work much better. In fact, one of my most common things I do is not enabling voice mode, but using the transcription feature on my computer or my phone, literally talking to it and letting it transcribe my words into text for the AI to read and to respond to, because it is a large language model and it works well. So to everybody out there that's thinking, maybe I'm not fearful, but I'm a little worried about AI, and it seems, as you mentioned, it's something I'm competing for my job for. I want to encourage you to learn how to prompt effectively, and it's really easy to do. And the beauty is once you learn that, and the word prompts off, it's kind of like texting your best friend. Most of us probably today have already texted a family member, a coworker, a friend. That's really the same type of thing that we're doing with AI. But just like when we're scheduling lunch with a friend, if we don't give enough information and we don't share the details in the right manner, or we go out of order, that friend may show up on the wrong day at the wrong restaurant to meet us for lunch because we didn't communicate well. And that exact same thing can happen with AI if we're not clear in what we're communicating. My recommendation, don't overthink it. Give it context, ask it your question. And then here's the kicker for everybody out there. When you're done entering your prompt or asking ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, whatever you're going to ask it, add this little phrase to the end and you will just massively change all your results. And that's ask me any questions you have. So literally just put that at the end of your prompt, because see, AI is intelligent enough to know if I came to you and said, hey, I need a press release written. And let's say you're the best person in the world, the most experienced, the most award-winning press release writer in the world. If I come to you and you go, Jonathan, great, I can do a press release for you, but I got a couple questions. And I go, no, never mind. You can figure it out. You're the best. No matter what you do, that press release isn't going to be as good as it could be, and likely won't even be close, because I wasn't able to give you any context. And we do that all the time with AI. So if you're worried about that, give AI that context, help it out. And I'd encourage every person listening, take a look at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, either at home, personally, work, wherever. Identify one or two things that you go, I got to do this every week and I don't love doing it. And let AI help you figure out a way to bring AI into that. For me, it's my email management. I get tons of emails and I don't like dealing with it. AI now literally, as I shared earlier, helps me respond to emails faster so that I can get through those emails literally in a fraction of the time that I used to have to do so. That's improved my customer service. It's improved my client's perspective. And candidly, it's lowered my stress because I'm getting rid of a task that I really don't like in much, much less time.
Yeah, and you actually just started down a pathway that I was hoping to continue the questioning. So you're leading me right down the path. When I'm thinking about that, when I was thinking about myself initially, and then I started thinking about other job roles. It's what prompted me to write this 4-part LinkedIn series that I put out. I'll share a link to the show notes with all the other links to Jonathan's things. But I started thinking about, what do I do as a professional that brings value to a client or to a business that might want to hire me? And I started listing all of those things out. So it was a pretty intensive process. And there are things I like doing in my job and things I kind of have to do. And from that list, you are able to look and find out and say, hey, you know what? I could have AI do these things I don't like doing that are more administrative or task-like. Once that's out of the way, you kind of have the gold mine of what you actually bring, the value you actually bring. And through working with a career coach, I actually worked with this incredible career transition coach. Her name is Laura Sims at Your Career Homecoming. Shout out, Laura. She is just phenomenal. And it's a lot of work when you work with her. It's not, you don't go to her and she solves all the problems. She really puts you through, you have to do the reps. But I did the reps for months, and what was left was this gold mine of what I bring. And it was very interesting that a lot of it wasn't in the doing. It was in my
Yes.
being state. It's who I am. And she had a really incredible exercise. I won't give away her IP, but there was an exercise where I was able to get reflections from people. And what was wild was that I think I spoke with 20 people, and through this exercise, and people that I know from all different areas of my life, personally, professionally, people that I worked with 20 years ago, 10 years ago, last month. It was a really wide range of people. And I think it was something like, 16 of the people all used the word mystical when they talked about me. And I was like, she's like, what is this? I'm like, what? I feel like I'm into mystical things, and people that know me personally would say that, but to know that literally developers that I worked with at an agency that would not know that about me, people that there was just no way that I thought they would have that context. And through that exercise and through looking at some of the other things, the values I bring, or the value that I bring, and reading through some of my LinkedIn referrals and some of the compliments I've been given by people in the past, I was like, there's this essence of who I am and the way I look at things and the way I communicate that is really of value. And when I look at the employers that, compensated me well, some of the reflections from them were not, oh, you're great at emails or you're great at closing deals. It's these intangible things. And that is what is so unique about this moment in time. And I feel the same way. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't look into the future. I don't know if AI is going to take everybody's jobs. Maybe it will. And maybe we'll look like fools in 5 years. Oh, look at Aubrey and Jonathan running themselves out of a job. But I don't have that feeling, especially I've been using these tools for 2 years, and I don't have that feeling. So
Agreed.
So the LinkedIn series, it goes into a question here. So I think I titled it something like the merging AI or the merging human AI workforce. And I put it out a few months ago, and I ideated 3 job functions that I just imagine will be highly sought after. And I put this article out. I just wanted to kind of get some conversations going. And I was really surprised to get private messages from people reading the series who were like, this is a great series, but I'm not sure I totally follow it. And it was from people who are in hiring roles or people who are in the technology, sphere. And I thought, wow, maybe people aren't really thinking about this yet as much as it feels like they should be. And the 3 roles that I kind of identified are guides and frame builders. So I see these people as people that can guide and build a frame for AI, which is prompting. It's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the second set and I kind of see these in a hierarchy, right? Guides and frame builders will sort of be, I can see I don't want to call it entry level, but it's more of a base level role. And then there are producers and directors who take that output and they continue producing and directing it to get to the outcome they need. And then on top of that layer in the workforce, I see captains and conductors. And they are really steering the ship. So at the top, they're working with the producers and directors going, that looks great. Don't forget, we're headed this way. This is who we're trying to sell to. Or, hey, this is where we're trying to move the company. And so do these resonate with you, these types of leaders and roles you see emerging?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. No, I love the way you've broken that down. I think it's so accurate.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Yeah, it came into my mind because after using the tools for so long, I started getting meta and zooming out and thinking, like, what steps am I going through? Okay, I'm framing it and guiding. It started flowing naturally. And then I looked back at the roles I've had from, entry-level marketing roles up through director-level roles and then vice president roles and sales. I've kind of done all kinds of things, creative things. And I was like, wow, you have to be able, I think in this new world, you have to be able to zoom out in so many ways. I talk about this in, I think, episode 21 about the need for a lot of people need to zoom out right now and are getting really myopic with things that are happening on the global stage or political stages and just zooming out. And we're in a world where it's critical to look out, look back from the screen, zoom away from your screen, look out at the world and get a bigger view because everything is changing. This isn't one person doing this or this bad guy and this good person. It's everything across every part of our world is changing. We have to zoom out. And with AI, I think some people jump in and start using the tools, and it's great. When you jump in, you're excited. You want to start, getting into the
Yes.
details and trying for tasks. But the real magic happens when you zoom out and go, wait a minute, what's the biggest thing I can imagine doing? And then how do I break it into steps? And how do I work with this magic? It's magic. How do I work with this magic in a really sophisticated, strategic way?
Yeah, and I think that's where we're headed. Right now, I think the danger is wrong, way too strong a word. I think the issue today is that so many people are overcomplicating AI. I love the way you broke it down because it really makes sense in my mind as you explain that. But I see so many people that come to me and they're overcomplicating it. It's almost like they're overthinking it and trying to go too deep with it. And it's like almost like a baby, when a baby's born, it can't do much of anything. Then at some point it learns how to roll over, and then it learns to crawl. And then as that toddler grows, it pulls itself up next to a piece of furniture and it takes a couple steps and it falls and it trips and it does so. And then seemingly overnight, if you're a parent, all of a sudden you're chasing your child around the house because they're running everywhere. And I really believe that AI, like so many things in life, we need to learn to use in the same way. We can't expect to go from zero to running a marathon. We don't have the experience. We don't have the skill. We haven't tried to do that. We need to first roll over, and then we need to crawl, and then we need to walk shakily. And then as we do that, by doing that, using AI will become such an ingrained part of the way that we think and the way that we work that will no longer, I don't want to say consciously, but I'm not consciously pondering, how am I going to use AI when I wake up? That's just not what I do. But I've used AI so much now that as I'm going through my day, I'm constantly thinking of ways and just using AI because it seems so natural. And I think if we would focus on that natural progression of learning, let's crawl, let's walk, and then let's run. And as we do that, understanding that how to use AI, we don't have to worry and plan for. It will simply happen in our lives. I grew up in a time before we had cell phones, and I remember actually sitting in a class in high school and somebody talking about someday we're going to have these cell phones. And I remember at the time thinking, why in the world would we want one? Now, there are moments I feel that way today, but overall, I'm really thankful for that phone. And I don't wake up in the morning and go, Jonathan, you've got this iPhone. How are you going to use it today? It's not, I just use it because it's become part of my life. And I really think that's what we need to do with AI as well. We need to just go, okay, it's like getting a new tool. At first, you're excited about it. And then months later, you just realize you're doing it and you're using it as just part of what you do. It's not even conscious anymore. It's that going from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent to unconsciously competent to consciously competent, or whatever. I'm probably getting the order wrong, but basically we're moving through that process so that we just unconsciously use the tools as they're designed. And that doesn't have to happen overnight. We don't have to run the marathon today. We can run the marathon a year from now.
Love it. Love it. If AI is a mirror reflecting back the inputs we give it, in your experience, what kinds of experiential wisdom or soft skills guide AI's outputs most effectively?
That's great. I think it's going to sound really odd because I believe AI saves time, but not rushing through prompts. In other words, thinking, imagine that, again, that we're communicating. It's no different than that, Aubrey. If we're communicating back and forth with each other, I don't want to assume that you're going to understand everything I'm saying, and I don't want to rush through that conversation and act as though any feedback you need is irrelevant. And I think because AI is not sentient, we tend to treat it as just a tool. It's just fine. But we also need to understand it's a large language model, and therefore it needs context and needs relevancy in order to be effective. And so when we're ready to ask that question, I would just encourage everybody to take 3 seconds and pause and go, how can I best phrase this? Not necessarily to be nice, but to be inclusive enough that you give it the relevant facts. Not inclusive as we often speak of it politically, but inclusive to make sure we're giving the tool enough information that it can actually give us an informed response. Because again, going back to where we started, it's kind of predicting. And as a result of being a predictor, we need to give it relevant information to process in order to give it an accurate prediction.
Can I ask you a question? When I'm
Sure.
prompting, awesome. When I'm prompting, I'll sometimes go in and I am like, this is what I'd like to do. And then I'll start giving detail. And then I'll say, this is the context. And I'll label the context with a colon so it knows which parts are the context. And then sometimes I'll go back and like reorder it to waterfall the information logically to what like I would do for a human, like if I was training
Mm-hmm.
someone. Is that an unnecessary step, or does it make sense to frame it like say the broad thing first and then get into details afterwards? Or can you just kind of like word vomit?
Yeah. So what that makes me think is the process that I often go through with AI, and I think it's exactly what you're describing. And I'll use the example. Let's say I wanted to write a book. Let's just make it a short story, but it'd probably be better. I can go to AI and I can say, write me a short story about a fox in the woods, and it will write me a short story about a fox in the woods. It won't be a very good story. It won't be particularly engaging, and it probably won't be very relevant to what I want. But if I would start and say, I want to write a fictional story, maybe a fable about a fox in the woods, and I'd like this to be targeted at my 3-year-old grandson, and I want to make sure that it uses the following characteristics, that the fox has these characteristics, and I want to make sure that it meets a goat along the way and that they form a friendship. Let's start by creating an outline for the story, and then AI will do a great job. It'll help me provide that outline. I would also encourage it, by the way, to ask me any questions you have along the way so it can ask me everything I've forgotten. Then once it's given me the outline, I would say, now let's go back and maybe it's identified as a short story. It's only going to be 4 chapters. Okay, now let's analyze each chapter and let's create a summary for each chapter. Now you go, Jonathan, this sounds like a lot of prompts. Yes, but we're now going to get a really good short story. And then I would go back and say, all right, now that you have the summary done, let's take the summary in the context of the entire outline and let's write the first chapter based upon this. And now the AI model has the context of the whole story. It has the 4 chapters that it's going to be broken into, and it has a summary of what chapter 1's supposed to be about. And now it can build off. And realistically, Aubrey, this is exactly how we think as human beings. We work through a process like that. With AI, we often forget that and just assume that AI will do that same thing, when in reality, as we're recording this today, we really need to walk AI through those steps, or risk getting something that doesn't at all reflect what we anticipated. And before people write that off and go, yeah, see, I knew AI, it just wasn't any good. It's just like working with a fellow coworker or a friend. If you and I were going to sit down and write a short story, and I just came to you, Aubrey, and I said, let's write a short story about a fox in the woods, you could probably write a great story. But if I didn't tell you it was intended for my 3-year-old grandson, it might not be relevant to him. Maybe it would be written for, a retired hunter. You could, the context would be all off because we wouldn't have discussed any of that. So I think what you're describing, if I'm understanding right, is exactly the way we can leverage AI, is to think through step by step, just like that. And in that process, we'll end up with a short story that, candidly, I probably never would have taken the time in my life to write. But now I might be able to write that in 30 minutes while I'm waiting for dinner, or while I'm waiting at the bus stop, or for that matter, waiting to pick my son up from school. And I can actually now create something that I've probably never would have created prior to AI. And I can bring joy to my grandson, and candidly to me, because that means his mom will send me a video of him listening to the story. And therefore, things can happen with AI that we've never been able to do before. And I love that personally from a creative perspective, because it allows us, I believe, to be even more creative and more inspired than we've ever had the opportunity in the past.
Yeah. You just described the producer and director part. After you put that first prompt in, you're producing and directing and working and being creative with the tool. Love it. In a world driven by efficiency, what role do you think intuition and spirituality might play in how we interact with these systems?
I think intuition is incredibly important because, again, as I said earlier, to me, that relates to being inspired. It's not exactly the same, but it really relates to that inspiration. We have an intuition that something's going to work, or that we should head down a path. And again, it can logically work through things. It has lots of logic. It's programmed with zeros and ones, but it's not intuitive. And that's something that AI can never have. So it's so important that we bring that to the table. because that's not something that AI can do for itself. And I'm sorry, I got so tied up, I forgot the second part of the question.
Well, yeah, I think you're kind of answering it. The second part was the spirituality.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I think I asked because I have cosmic clarity clients, people that I work with on a spiritual basis, and it's a way to connect with people and have them have a different perspective on what's going on in their life. And I had one of my clients, and he sent me a message. He said, "Aren't you worried about AI? It's going to take your job." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, I went in and I've been communicating with ChatGPT, and it's sort of acting like a therapist for me and giving me answers, and it's telling me about my astrology and what might be coming up, and it knows me so well." And I said, "That's wonderful." And I've explored things like that too, to see just how deep can this rabbit hole go. It's actually very fascinating. And I said, "I'm not worried at all. Like if that brings you what you need, you'll work with that tool, and I'll work with someone who needs me." But I get the feeling that the human interaction and the value that you get from our conversations goes deeper. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I was just worried in case, you start losing your job from this." I said, "No, I'm not worried about it." So,
No, I think that really, in my mind, I agree with you, by the way, entirely on that, Aubrey, but I think a lot of it boils down to our mindset that we have. We can either live in a society of fear or in one that I call abundance. And that's believing that, I'll use an old economic term, they talk about your slice of the pie. I don't believe the pie is limited. I don't believe that the pie is only so big, and that if you get a bigger piece of the pie, that necessitates me getting a smaller piece. I believe the pie is dynamic and it expands. And so we can both have a larger piece of the pie. And I think when we're talking about business and careers and all that, that same thing applies. I'm doing things today that I had not envisioned I would be doing 3 years ago. They weren't even on my radar. Ironically and thankfully, they really fit into what I call my zone of genius, the things that Jonathan loves to do and that I'm good at doing, I now get to do on a regular daily basis, largely because of AI. But it wasn't because I had this perfect plan and baked the pie just so. It just happened to be that I was walking down the road proverbially and somebody said, "Hey, Jonathan, would you like a piece of pie?" And that pie could be as large as I decided to make it based upon my appetite and what I was interested in. And I really believe, again, from a spiritual level, that that's how the world works. It is an abundant universe that has more abundance than we can understand as human beings. And that instead of operating from a perspective of, "Oh no, I'm going to lose," I think we simply need to change our perspective. And AI can, by the way, help us do that. If you're having a bad day, AI can be a great therapist to walk you through some of that and go, "I'm seeing the glass as half empty right now, and I'm really worried. Help me see the glass as half full from an abundance mindset," and it'll be able to guide you through that. But I think that especially coaches like you and I and consultants and that, we're going to find that our work may evolve a bit, but I believe it's going to allow us to operate even more again in that zone of genius that we have, focused on the abundance we can bring to others, not in a fearful, "Uh-oh, I'm going to lose my job, I can't share this." I think just the opposite's going to be true.
absolutely. The episode I did with Matthias De Bernardini, he's here out of Bitcoin Park in Nashville, episode 22, I believe. He talked about scarcity and abundance and how Bitcoin is so incredible because it's this resource created from energy. And he's
Yes.
talking about in the past, far past, our ancestors really lived in, not even that far past, but he was referring to the far past. Our ancestors lived in great scarcity. And now we live in a world of great abundance. And these technologies, I think, especially as we move into this, definitely there's a sense that we are moving into a new world, a completely different era. People refer to it by different terms. Some people say Age of Aquarius, or they have different phrases for it, the new world. But really what it is an opportunity for kind of all boats to rise. There's
Yes.
just this, it's a democratization of information and ability on a level that is just unfathomable. It's unfathomable.
True.
It's I can't even sit and think about it. It's like trying to sit and think about how vast the universe is. And when I think about what
Yes.
what economies will be built, what businesses, what job titles, what we'll be doing in 10 years. I can't shape anything. It's a blob. So,
Yeah. If we try to predict it, we're going to be wrong. I mean, 5 years ago, who could have predicted where we're at today? I think that's part of living in the current and going, okay, we're going to be the best that we can be based on where we have, and not necessarily allow those future fears, which, by the way, rarely come true in the way that we fear they may. If we can live in the current and look forward positively, I absolutely believe that that abundance mentality is there to benefit all of us.
absolutely. You spoke to me briefly about, I thought you said ADHD, but maybe you said ADD and AI, and how kind of the creative bursts of ADD, ADHD can somewhat mirror AI's ability to generate novel ideas from seemingly unrelated inputs. What connections do you find between ADHD or ADD and AI, or what benefits might it bring for someone working with those things?
Well, I should probably say I was diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. I don't know there's a substantial, at least, difference for the purposes of our discussion. They're both neurodivergent um, at 42 years old. So I'd lived 42 years before I even got diagnosed with it. And my wife would tell you it made a lot more sense to her than it did to me. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. But what I have learned over the last 12 years is that by understanding what that means, by understanding the way that I was created with those skills, and I really look at it as a skill. I know society doesn't, but it kind of goes back to that abundance thing we're talking about. We can frame a situation any way that we decide to frame it. And my ADD means I do some things really, really well. I do other things really, really poorly. And instead of focusing my life on the poor things that I'm trying to fix, if I lean into those things that I already do well, that are just naturally part of who Jonathan is, it allows me to excel in ways that I could never do before. And AI fits into that for me as somebody who's neurodivergent, because of the fact that one of the things that being ADD gives me is the ability to hyper focus. The downside is it only allows me to do so for very short periods of time. I'm 55 years old and I've managed to get that up to about 15 minutes. That's not very long. But the great news is in those 15 minutes, I can outwork anybody for 15 minutes. Now, the problem is the next 8 hours could be gone because what happened, and I've really, AI has ironically helped me learn this. The reason I can only focus for 15 minutes is because there's so much going through my brain. There's so much going through my mind. Not all of it relevant. It's just it's funny. My wife and I chat and I'll ask her, what's on your mind? And she laughs. We've been married 23 years. And she goes, you still haven't learned that sometimes there's nothing on my mind. And I'm like, no, because I've never been in a situation where there wasn't something on my mind. And she goes, that must be so noisy. And I go, it must be so quiet.
Yeah.
It's just a different way that our minds work. And AI allows me to work faster. Therefore, my mind doesn't get as far ahead of where I'm at, and I can now stay focused for sometimes an hour or more at a time. Well, if I could accomplish, let's just say 3x work during that 15 minutes, and now I can do that for an hour, wow, what an incredible benefit that brought to me. The other thing that it allows me to do is, as someone with ADD, I can literally switch tabs on my computer and forget what I'm doing and why I did that, because it's just boom, something's gone. AI, again, allowing me to be more focused, allows me to keep track and manage my day better to make sure that those things are happening. And the beauty of that is, because of the way that I use AI and the different chat tools and that type of thing, I literally sometimes at 7 a.m. when my first staff meeting kicks off, I may open a tab and then I may switch and I may forget about it until I look at the end of the day when I go through all my tabs and close them down and go, oh, that's right. It's 7 this morning. I wanted to do that. But because I'm using AI for so much, I don't have to go back through my whole day and figure it out. I probably have a chat window for that, or I have an item in my history that I can go back to, and I can go right back to that conversation. Aubrey, it's kind of like if you and I were planning lunch for tomorrow and we're texting back and forth. I might get really busy today, and you may have texted me with a restaurant and a time this morning at 7 o'clock, and I may not respond all day long because life got busy. But when I remembered to respond, then I went back to that text message. It was right there. I didn't have to go searching for it or anything else. And AI, again, allows me to organize things and to get things done faster in a way that just candidly lowers my stress level. I mean, I also get more done, and that's cool. But my life has less drama and stress in it now because I have fewer moments of, oh crap, I forgot that, and then I have to go fix it. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's how I use it.
100% are. Yeah. And you're making me wonder if I have ADHD, actually, like everything you're saying. I love AI. I have all these tabs open and I can put a prompt in, it's running. I go to another tab. I get up, I'm doing the laundry. I'm like all over the place, but I get so much done and I have a lot more of my day free to do what I want because my brain maybe I need to look into like a checklist and see if this is what I have because
I love it. I love it.
You're describing me. It seems like there's a growing tension between people who see AI as liberation and those who feel it's just adding to their workload. How are the business leaders you're working with navigating this tension, and what do you recommend when you're asked how to find the right balance here?
Most people I talk to are, again, probably more fearful of it than anything else. And what we try to do is we really try to look back and AI should never cause you more work. Let me begin with that. If it's causing you more work, then something's wrong. Something is misaligned. You just need to reevaluate what's going on because AI shouldn't do that. Now, if you're ADD like me, AI may cause you to get more done. You may be busier, and sometimes you may feel that, not because AI is not helpful, but because of who I am as an individual and the way my mind works. If I end up with a half hour free, I'm likely to stuff that full of some more projects because I have now AI and I can actually get stuff done in that 30 minutes. But back to your question, I really encourage people to take a look, and this is a simple time study that I read in a book a long time ago. And it said, take your entire day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and in 15-minute increments, just summarize what you did. So when I first woke up, it might be stretching and brushing my teeth and getting ready, and that might be the next 15 minutes. And then it might be getting a coffee and thinking about my day, and then it might be hopping on my first call or whatever that looks like. But do that all day long. Just every 15 minutes, write it down. And then at the end of the day, look back and go, did that give me positive energy? And did I enjoy that task? Mark it green. Am I ambivalent about it? It has to be done. I don't really care. It doesn't, I had to take the trash out, but it's not a problem. I can then just leave it blank. And which items on that list, and these are the important ones, which items I look at, I go, oh, I hate that. I can't stand that. That drains me. It's just, it feels, it may not be negative. And me, that would have anything to do with paperwork, by the way. It would just make me feel negative. Mark that as red. Now go back to your list. And by the way, if you do that for a week and lay that out, I'm not a coach, but that works what I did and it worked really well. I was able to analyze some trends in what I was doing. And I took AI and literally fed that information to ChatGPT and said, here's the things that I'm going through that I don't like. How can you help me with these things? And AI identified different areas that, okay, you know what, I can help in these areas. I can help with this. One of the things that came up was going through emails. I didn't enjoy that. And so it said, let's create a persona for Jonathan that answers emails. It's a custom GPT that's been trained on how I think, what my values are, my tone and my style. And now instead of struggling to write responses, copy and paste your emails into this tool and let it write a response for you that you can copy and paste back, make some simple edits to, and be done. And I'm like, whoa, that could actually almost make email fun. So that's the process I recommend to all my clients as well. Let's go through, let's do a time study. And it could be on their personal day, or it could just be for them as a department, as a company, but identifying those things that both they and their teams that are red, that at the end of the day, they look back and go, these are the red things. These are the things I know every Friday I've got to go through expense reports because I'm in operations and it's important. I got to do that, but I hate it. Okay. How can we then use AI to help analyze expense reports for you? We probably can't take it that you don't have to do that anymore if that's your job. But if it takes you 4 hours every Friday now, and we could turn that into 30 minutes, would that add value to your life? And my perspective is, oh yeah, it would. And so those are the areas that we want to start with. And I want to go back to your thing. If you feel AI is causing you more work or is not saving you time, unless you're just in the middle of learning it, and so you're doing both things at the moment where it could, other than that short moment in life, AI should cause you to save time every day, not have more stress. It should reduce your stress.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to try that time study. That's really, I've done, not I think, I've done things like that where I'll journal what I did in the day, but I've never quantified it the way you did or
Mm-hmm.
treated it as like separate data points. I'm going to do that and see. I bet there's so, I mean,
I
not I
love
bet.
that. I really do.
I know there's a ton of things I'm doing that I could just not be doing anymore and it would make life better. And I love the way you answered the question. It wasn't the way I was expecting. So, but it was an amazing answer. I was really wondering, I think there are people who are not entrepreneurs, people who work at companies, and they are
Mm-hmm.
afraid, oh, if we start using AI, my boss will expect me to do more in the day. The promise of AI
Mm-hmm.
is what you just said. Oh, we're going to have more time freedom and you can do the things you like to do less. And then for me, for example, I'll give an example to make it more tangible. A lot of my career was in the marketing world. And when I started, there was specific things I did. And as we moved on, it really was beneficial for me to become a marketing generalist. And now, I mean, I can do a lot of things across the marketing ecosystem. I'm kind of like a one-man band, and I can video edit, I can graphic design, I can
Mm-hmm.
copyright, I can do all of these things. And so I've definitely felt that in my career working at companies, like, wow, like once you see that I can do this, the tasks continue piling on. So what would you say, I think, to people who maybe are worried that that could happen, and maybe you don't have the answer. I don't know. I know that you work with both business owners and individuals, but when you're talking to businesses, do they ever ask you how to use it or what the balance point is, or do you ever make recommendations on this?
No, I think you're absolutely dealing with a very common thing. And I see both business leaders and their teams worrying about that. What's this going to do to our headcount? What this is going to do to our team? The reality in my mind is that right now, as let's take it from the employee perspective, uh, is your employer going to expect you to get more done? Probably. But that doesn't mean that you're going to have more stress or less time in your day. Using AI effectively, again, you probably can figure out how to get, and I mean this literally, an extra 30 to 45 minutes every single day, even with more tasks, to have more time to focus on the things that matter and that you love to do. And as employers, one of the things I encourage people to do is when they're bringing AI into a company, let's encourage our team to save 30 minutes a day. Let's identify things that allow them to save 30 minutes. By the way, that's a very easy, quick win in 99.9% of the companies out there. And instead of it going back and going, great, now you've got more time, give the 30 minutes to the team. Let them do whatever they want for that 30 minutes. Most of that team is going to spend more time focusing on things that they know they really should spend more time on. They just didn't have the time to do. Some of them may decide to take a longer coffee break. Oh, well, don't worry about it. And in that process, your team will begin to go, wow, this AI stuff is actually pretty cool because of what it allows me to do and the value that it's bringing into my life. And then you can go back and say, all right, let's do that again. Let's find other red zones that we can affect. And now maybe I've managed to help you save 2 hours a day. Do I expect you to get more work done? Yes, I do. But to the employee, it should be less stressful because I have tools to help me do that. It's like me doing email. Email is almost fun nowadays because I don't have to think and ponder through it all. I literally can copy, paste, get the responses back. We've even automated a lot of that now so that literally the drafts just are ready for me to review, making life a whole lot easier. Now, I don't send them out without reviewing them because I want to make sure I'm involved. That'd be no different than if I had an assistant helping me out. Wouldn't let my assistant just write all my emails for me and send them without me having anything to say either. So I don't know if I'm answering your question there, but
You
then
are.
from the
You are.
business side,
Yeah.
yeah, small wins, let everybody win from it. And as an employee, remember that you can add so much value and probably income and benefits to your position by simply embracing that AI and demonstrating to your employer that you can be more efficient and more effective. It's not just about being more efficient I'm a marketer, and if I write an email campaign by myself, it may take me 3-4 hours. If I write it with AI, it probably is going to take me 30 minutes. Here's the one that we don't talk about. The one written with AI is probably better than the one I wrote in 3 hours as well. And so not only am I providing a better result, but I am more efficient. So I'm saving time. So I'm adding value all the way around. And hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. Yeah. What are your favorite AI tools right now? Maybe just 3 or 4.
This is a great question. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take a slightly circuitous route to answer it.
Go for it.
Getting lost with AI tools, we all get excited about new things, or most of us do at least. We get excited about new things, and there's always new things coming out. Literally daily with AI, there's new things coming out.
There's that website. There's an AI for that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like overwhelming.
Encourage you. You're going to get overwhelmed if you try to pay attention to the best AI and the perfect AI. Couple of comments. First, there is no such thing as a perfect AI. It doesn't exist. And if it did, it would be replaced in the next week by some other perfect AI. So don't chase that. What I want to encourage you to do, the same thing I encourage my clients to do, the AI, that tool that you have available to you today is the best one. Not because it's the best at everything it does, but because it's accessible to you. And you are going to spend inordinate amount of time searching for and testing and playing with new tools that don't work out. Trust me, I'm guilty of that. That had you simply taken the time to use the tool you had in front of you, maybe that's Gemini from Google if you're in a Google Workspace environment, maybe it's ChatGPT, maybe it's Microsoft Copilot, I hope not, but if it is, it's still okay, and I don't even like it as a tool. Use the tool you have available, because that tool, it's the old 80-20 rule. It'll allow you to get 80% of the way towards your goal in 20% of the time. And if we take a look at that in our day and go, wow, if I could figure out how to get 80% of my work done, so I'm in a work day, I've got 8 hours out there, and my math is probably going to be off. But if I could get 80% of that work done, and I could literally do it in an hour and a half, that means I've now got the rest of that 8-hour day to do the last 2 hours of work. And that means less stress. That means a better way to do it. I can probably focus more. And I can do that with any AI tool that exists. If you don't have any of them and you've got a Facebook account or an Instagram account, Meta has a great tool out called Llama that you can use that's entirely free. You don't even have to pay for. And is it the perfect tool? No, but it's really good. And that's all we need when we're getting started. My favorite tool, which is what you asked, what do I do use all the time? I use ChatGPT more than anything else that I do, plain and simple.
Yeah. You just said, so my brain went in like 3 directions. At Vanderbilt University's AI Day conference a month ago, I referred to it a bit earlier in the conversation. I forget who was on stage. They were speaking, and they said, it's really funny how we get mad at AI tools sometimes and say, it got it wrong, or it gave me a wrong answer, or it didn't do it right. And the person was, I'm paraphrasing, but they were like, are you kidding me? Like magic just walked in the room and pretty much did the job. And now you're angry because it's not perfect. Like our expectations are so out of control with this brand new thing that is so magical. And so I liked what you said about the 80-20 rule and like use what you have in front of you. I've definitely gone down the rabbit hole trying different things. And I have found some pretty unique, cool tools that are like light years ahead of what else may be out there. And it's, the functionality is great, or the ease of use, how easy it is for me to use. I remember this was a while ago, I was at HubSpot's inbound conference in Boston. I used to go to that frequently for my former career. And I remember Guy Kawasaki was there, and he was speaking, and he had partnered, I think he'd partnered, or he was an investor in Canva. He says this new thing, Canva.
Yeah.
And from that keynote, I immediately got on Canva. So I'm an early adopter. Watching the advancements in Canva over the years, that company.
Amazing.
And so it's a young woman who started the company, and her story is incredible. And her leadership and that company blows my mind. What you're capable of doing on Canva now is, I'm speechless. That's
it's mind-blowing. It really is. Absolutely.
Absolutely mind-blowing. And so once you start getting it, and it's intuitive, that's what's so beautiful. So for people listening in, I know there's a lot of my audience that has more experience. They're people who haven't necessarily come from the tech world. I'm hoping that this conversation makes it so that it feels like something that's accessible. And the fact that almost all these tools are free. I also spend most of my time in ChatGPT. I have the paid pro account, a lot of time in Canva and a few other tools, but I really like Grok for certain things. Grok seems to
I do too.
outperform. Grok on X outperforms ChatGPT. Sometimes I'll start with ChatGPT and then I'll throw it into Grok and be like, Grok's getting a little bit closer to what I want. So if you're out there and you haven't tried anything, just try Google Gemini. I didn't even know about Facebook Llama, ChatGPT's free version. I don't know if Canva has a free tier or not. I'm on a paid tier with them, but it is just phenomenal what you can get done. So I'm glad you said that. Use what's right in front of you, because we are at a point where the bar is so high, even probably the worst tool is going to blow your mind if you haven't tried it yet. So
that's a great way to look at it. You're right. The bar is so there, even the worst tool is such a massive improvement over not using any at all.
Yeah. And the one watch out, I will say, if you are unfamiliar with the tools, AI does something sometimes called hallucinate. It will hallucinate, just like with humans. When you have a lot of information in your head, you'll say, oh, remember the time we went to the creek and you wore those blue pants? And they'll say, no, I wore purple pants and it wasn't a creek, it was a lake. And you go, oh yeah, the memory kind of gets jumbled. And AI, there's a couple of things going on. It will sometimes hallucinate, and just sometimes things can get jumbled. Also, AI is trained to make the user happy, to please you, to give you an answer that will please you. And so if it doesn't know the answer, it'll sometimes make something up. And sometimes it's factual things. So whenever I'm using the tools, I always, if it says, Bob Dylan said this, or in 1973, Philip did this, I will go and Google it. I'll go fact check. I'll look at Wikipedia. I'll do some cross-checking, because you don't want to embarrass yourself, and you definitely don't want to be putting out false information. There's this whole other can of worms. Oh my gosh, I'm like sighing because, oh my God, we are now in a world where anyone can write anything on the internet. Anyone can write anything on social media. And if you're taking that and then quoting it, and then it gets quoted again and again, and then pretty soon it's a fact. I learned this so much in my marketing background. I started working, clients we're working for are Fortune 10, Fortune 50 companies, and you're working on stuff for them. And they say, okay, we need to get statistics. And you hear something that's exciting, and I'd go to source it. And I'm like, oh, it's from this report. And then you have to keep going, okay, that report, who funded that? Going down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
And I'll get down and I'm like, wait a minute, this website isn't up anymore, or this company isn't around anymore. Wait a minute. Somebody said this on a damn podcast and they're not even in the industry. There's no way we can quote this for Fortune 10, insert Fortune 10 logo name here.
Yes.
That would crush their reputation. And so I learned, and I also went to school for marketing and public relations and strategic communications back in the day. And this was well before social media. And so I shouldn't say well before social media, but it was before social media was really prevalent, and things were more rigorous then. The journalistic standards were more rigorous, and it really mattered. Like, it's when there was actual journalism, when newspapers were still around, and when you had to fact check for real. And so if you're using these tools and you're newer to it, be very careful when you're going through and just double check. It will sometimes say things that aren't correct. So sometimes I'll ask it, can you give me a source for that? Oh, I'm sorry. That actually was incorrect. Okay, yeah, it sounded incorrect, right? The Declaration of Independence wasn't written in 1996. And why it did that, I have no idea. But it can happen on subtle realms. And so we have to be careful, because we're all co-creating this new world, this new it's a whole new layer of reality, and we're co-creating it together. And we all have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that we're not creating these. I mean, imagine your son. Well, I guess your son's a little bit older, but if you have kids out there, imagine you have a 5-year-old, and in 10 years they get on the internet and they think that the Declaration of Independence was written in 1996 because of some crazy thing that got repeated by people that are younger and don't have that maybe more firsthand knowledge of what happened, and they think that's real. So it's
again, it goes back to that skill and experience. I think it's why skill and experience is so relevant, because My 17-year-old may not be able to look at that and immediately go, I mean, that one he probably could, but there's a lot of things he might look at and not really know. Once we've had some experience, we can look back. You've worked with many, many clients, and it gives you the ability to look at something, and it sets that little, guy on your shoulder off going, hang on, that doesn't seem quite right. Let's investigate that. And you're absolutely right. Most of what AI will give you is very good, but it's important that you do fact check and you validate those things.
Yeah. Reminds me of this cute little anecdote. My niece, she just turned 13 and she's my favorite. She's so sweet. You're all my favorite. I tell you, you're all my favorite, but this was so sweet. She, the other day said, I don't know if she said it to her mom or both of her parents, but they were referencing something about September 11th, the event that happened here in the United States. And she said, you guys were alive during September 11th? And they were like, yeah, we were. So it's so easy to forget how ancient things seem if they happened almost even the year before you were born. I think of the year I was born, and when I hear anyone say the year before I was born, I get these like grainy 35 millimeter film pictures, and I think everything was, the good old days. And it's like, that was just a few months before you were born, or even 10 years before I was born. I'm like, I have these ancient feelings in my mind. So we have to remember that too, as we're moving forward, that as things continue to accelerate. So what's one of the coolest or most unique use cases you're seeing in any industry, any realm, anything you've heard of? It can even be fringe. What's one of the coolest or most unique use cases you've seen applied lately with AI?
Boy, there's so many that I hear about and so many that I love. I think, to me, the ones that I see probably being most impactful to people are a lot of the people that I work with. I'm sure you're aware of. Anytime somebody, imposter syndrome is something that so many people struggle with. I'll raise my hand, I know I do. People are like, why me? Why can I do this? Or why should I do this? And I think it keeps so many of us from doing what we're capable of because we talk ourselves in that negative self-talk out of doing things. And I have seen just some amazing ways, kind of going back to that therapy that we talked about with AI, that AI helping people with imposter syndrome. And it's not, I'm not trying to say you're special if you don't have, or if you do have it, because I do too. I run into it all the time. But working through those moments when our mindset isn't exactly in the right spot and taking us to help us logically work through it. Again, it's very logical to work through that and to walk through some of that negative self-talk. May not be the most monumental, but it's definitely one of the coolest things I've seen, because I've literally seen lives transformed of people when they went from the I can't do that to I can do that. So that, from just a personal perspective, I love. The other one that's probably got me, that I just think is just way cool, and I haven't checked on it in the last probably 30 days, but they actually took AI and had it analyze the last 50 plus years of diabetes research, and were able to, not with any new research, but to do the data analysis and pull this all together to be able to, what they believe may be a cure for type 1 diabetes, which has never existed in the world before. It can be managed, but it can't be cured. And they actually think they may have identified a way to cure it. They're testing it right now. I've got a friend who has a daughter who has it. So it's just something a little bit near and dear to my heart. And I love using AI to do something that it didn't create something new per se. This literally was on data that's existed, but because it can do data analysis so well, it was able to crunch all of this data much faster than we as humans could and find some connections that they believe may actually lead to a cure. And how cool would that be if we could cure certain diseases, not because the research hasn't been done, but just because the dots haven't necessarily been connected. We live in a global society now, and some of that research may have been done in different countries and different peers that have no access to one another. Now being able to bring that together, to me, is one of the most exciting aspects of impacting us in our day-to-day lives.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful example. The pediatric diabetes example you just gave, and something that's not that deep, but something that kind of goes along those lines. I take a lot of supplements. I try to be healthy, and I take a lot of pills and tinctures and little oils and things. And I know that there's a possibility of having things, I forget the word, but like cross compete. They can
Yeah,
just not,
exactly. Yeah, they almost cancel each other out or whatever.
yeah, just like an interaction issue. And when I go to my doctor, they're always like, "What are you taking?" I'm like, I'm too lazy to say it all because I'd have to remember all of it. Well, one afternoon, I went into my little health tincture cabinet and I pulled everything out and I literally plugged all of it in. And I said, "Am I duplicating any efforts? Are there any interactions?" And there was a couple things that I could eliminate. And then I said, I know there's different times of the day and different foods and liquids and different things that can happen that can help with absorption. And I mean, it took about an hour to do this because, again, the prompting, you have to be
Sure.
specific with it. And it went through and it gave me a daily schedule. And I now have a bunch of alarms on my phone. And I know I take these three together before I eat, an hour before. These two do well with a protein. I always have a protein at breakfast. So it's like, I was going, I'm like, oh my gosh, now all of this money that I spend to try to be healthy, it's like, it's actually going to work. Like these things are going to work better. And
Absolutely.
there is, I mean, if I had paid a dietitian to do this, first of all, I mean, obviously there's people that do that, but I'm just thinking like the amount that I had, how long it would take them to go through and like
Oh,
probably
yeah.
cross and do all that. And I'm like, I can just do it instantly. And my time with a dietitian is better served having them teach me about what to buy at the grocery store and what recipes I can do and not micro analyzing all of these little tiny things that a computer can do.
Exactly.
And
I
yeah,
love that use. Well, very practical.
yeah, it was because I always look at them and I'm like, I'll just take them whenever. And I was like, this is not how these tinctures are meant to be taken. Like, I need to be more precise with this. And the first example you gave, at first I was thinking, oh, that's interesting that he's choosing this for a use case. And then when you said, the ability for it to impact people, and all of a sudden my mind expanded in a few ways, which is that mental health is one of the biggest issues worldwide right now with
Yeah.
the epidemic of loneliness. And we have, we can go on and on and on, reasons why, the breakup of the family and screens, and just there's so much coming at us all the time. But there are a lot of people who cannot afford or do not have access to mental health. And like we've said earlier, many of these tools are free. So if you're in that position, if you're one of those people, you can start to have this be, a shoulder to lean on or someone to at least start the conversation with while you're waiting to get access to a doctor, right? It can't replace a doctor. It can't replace a
Exactly.
therapist, but it's, on the
No,
conversation.
but at 2 a.m. when you're having a panic attack and there's nobody to talk to, if you have that opportunity if AI can help you get to 8 a.m. till you can get to the doctor's office, that's an immense blessing in your life,
It's
plain and simple.
it's immense. An episode with Amy Kelly and Shannon Morse, episode 22. Again, I believe here on the show, I talked about because they're in the health tech space, and I said there's going to be people that say, oh, this could be a danger, or try to put limits on it, and we were all of the consensus that, and I hope most people would feel this way too, that when you have something that is mostly able to help and is very accurate and can engage in a language model, and you don't need high level skills, you can speak in whatever language capacity, vocabulary capacity you have, and the AI can meet you there. If we have large swaths of the population who are unserved, unable to be served at a certain moment, and we're able to immediately increase their knowledge of diet, exercise, mental health, if they have someone to talk to, especially in the loneliness epidemic. I've used different AI tools that they're called like AI friends, and it's for people who
Yeah.
need a friend, and I've interacted with them, and wow, I mean, I start to really feel like I'm talking to someone. I get like a warm feeling inside, and I'm like, gosh, like I could just tear up right now.
Well, and if that's bringing value to the user's
Yeah.
life, I don't see the harm in it.
Yeah.
I know some people get very up in arms over that, but if it's bringing, I have a peer that's creating an application for dementia patients, and it's an AI application, and the reason they're doing it is, and I had an aunt go through dementia. One of the most difficult things for us as humans to do is when dealing with a dementia patient is answer the same question that they may ask us 77 times in a row, or may ask us every 3 minutes, and they get into like a routine and go through. But AI doesn't get frustrated with that. AI can answer that question for them. AI can remind them by listening to what they're saying that, oh, I haven't seen my boys in so long. And they can remember, wow, Sharon, that was my aunt's name. They happened to be here last week, Saturday. In fact, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. And then she has joy for a moment. And now 3 minutes later, she may go right back to, I haven't seen my boys in so long. And AI is not going to be frustrated about telling her that same thing 77 times that day if that's where she's at. And if that adds value to her life, makes her have a better emotional day, then that's, from my mind, an amazing thing. Is it the same as having a clinician or a professional? No, but that professional isn't going to be sitting with my aunt all day long, nor is anybody else. And so if we have the ability to do things like that and improve one's life, I think that's just amazing.
It is. It's so interesting. If Shannon and Amy are listening to this right now, I'm sure their brain hit the same point. What you just described, the use case with your Aunt Sharon with dementia, it's the exact use case, but through a different lens. They're talking about how Miri AI, which is the health coach and wellness AI. Yeah. So they are talking about how clinicians, dietitians, strength trainers, health coaches, they have to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
To so many, it's the base level of knowledge that the majority of people will need. And it gets to be like your emails a bit, it can be frustrating or it's a time suck. And wouldn't it be great if their energy and effort and time were preserved for those one-to-one unique conversations? And when you're talking, I'm thinking about even a therapist. I see my therapist once a week. It's 50 minutes and we talk about things and it's a catch up. But if her personality and our conversations and what we've shared are embodied in an AI that mostly can capture that and behave, interact as her throughout the week, if I have a moment, can tap in and I'll know that it's an AI, but it will feel connective and like a continued conversation. And then my therapist at that point could, right before, an hour before our session or 30 minutes before, say to the AI, summarize any conversations you've had with Aubrey this week. So
exactly.
Boom. I mean, I'm sure somebody's thought of that, but if they haven't, that's my idea. And let's freaking talk, because that's $1 million idea. That's $100 million idea right there. So I might bleep this out to make sure, but just kidding, but also not kidding. You know where to find me.
But you made a comment about, mental health isn't widely available or help isn't. And there are so many people around the globe that could benefit from it. And if we have an 80% solution, why not go there?
100%. That's exactly what they said. And I reflected, I said, if we have, let's just say 100,000 people who, have XYZ and the diagnosis is wrong for 10 of them, would we call that a problem? No, we 100% wouldn't. And it's just like with the hallucinations, right? Or I didn't get the task right. Well, did it just do magic in front of you and it got a couple things wrong? So fix it. Go and tweak the screws, dial the knobs.
Just as we would with a coworker or an employee or anybody else. You don't want to get fired as an employee because you made a mistake because somebody miscommunicated with you, and it's happened to all of us. We shouldn't just throw AI out because we can identify those situations there as well.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to time. I have I guess one more question.
Sure.
If you had to predict one major shift. And I'll ask it twofold so you can take it either direction or both. But if you had to predict one major shift in the American workforce over the next 2 to 3 years, what would it be? And you can also take this, if you had to predict one major shift in how the world will interact on the global stage in the next 2 to 3 years because of artificial intelligence, what would that be?
I'm going to hopefully address the first. What immediately came to mind when you said that is that I believe that one of the major changes we're going to see in households throughout, and workspaces for that matter, throughout the United States and other developed countries, is that many of the tasks that we do nowadays that seem relatively rudimentary are going to be replaced by AI intelligent robots. And as an example, in my home here, we have a robot vacuum that goes around and vacuums the floor for us. Does it do as good a job as what I could do or my wife could do? No, it doesn't. But it's an 80% job. That means that now, instead of us having to do that every week, we get to do that maybe every 6 weeks, because in the interim, it takes care of that. And I think we're going to see an absolute explosion of that around the globe, of smart, essentially, appliances that have a task or that are specialists. I'm not predicting a true robot that walks around the house and does everything and that, but specialty tools that, and again, almost like adding AI to your air fryer or that type of thing, that are going to be able to do more for us than they are today, and are going to allow us to save time and energy. And I do think as a result, you're going to see some people become displaced. In other words, that may mean that if you're let's say a housekeeper at a hotel, maybe that's going to cut down some of your hours. But I don't think so. I think what's actually going to happen is that we're going to identify areas in which the AI can take those red tasks that we talked about earlier off our plate and give us more time for the tasks that are green and or just we're ambivalent about. And think about our lives and how much better our lives would be if we didn't have to focus on things that drove us crazy to do but needed to be done. And so that's, I think, where I see the biggest change coming. I think that some people will be displaced, but those people will have ample opportunity with AI to either upskill or to move into other areas that maybe they're more passionate about. Because maybe my goal in life was to flip hamburgers at McDonald's. Maybe it wasn't. And if I'm doing that and it wasn't my goal, and AI gives me the ability to pursue my goal, then isn't that an amazing thing? If my goal is to flip hamburgers, that's great. But if I had other goals, or maybe even I had things that I wasn't aware of because I've never had the opportunity to pause in my day because I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or I'm always relying on what's happening. And now AI gives me that ability to pause for a moment, and as a result, ponder and identify what things might I be interested in that would improve the quality of my life and those that I'm around.
Absolutely. The example you just gave of the housekeeper, I had a business idea or an operations idea came to my mind there. Is think about if I think about the tasks of a housekeeper, maybe one of the tasks that maybe a lot of housekeepers don't like is cleaning the bathroom. That's it's an area with a lot of germs and a lot of nooks and crannies and things to do there. If there is, the Elon Musk, I forget what the robot is, the robot goes in and it's cleaning that bathroom, and maybe now the housekeeper's role elevates and you go in and you're checking the work of the robot. And if there's a few missed spots, you do that. And then maybe the hotel is also able to say, oh, you know what? Now that there's a little more free time, the housekeepers are able to put in a beautiful, bouquet of flowers or do extra things in the room to make, and then pretty soon the hotel's elevated and the guest experience is better. And it's this idea of a rising tide, or is it the rising tide raises all boats?
Raises all boats. Yeah, exactly. I love that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you said that, there's just more kind of ideas, more business ideas come to my mind. And I really like the way you put that. And I have to say, Jonathan, I knew it when we connected the first time and we talked right away. I was almost like, okay, bye. Like, I already know we're going to talk. Like, great. I talked to you for 2 seconds. I was like, this is going to be great. We barely even chatted. We had a little bit of time together, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And I have to say, you have such a great energy. You have such a good vibe. I am so glad that you said yes to being on the show. And I'm really glad that the people listening in all over the world, you guys are in 45 countries now. And I'm so glad that you are listening in and that you have the chance to be exposed to Jonathan, because I keep a tight gatekeep here at the show. People reach out and want to be on and pitch their things and talk about AI and tech. And I'm very intentional with who I bring on. And I always want it to be people who I feel are doing good things in the world and shepherding and moving this technology in a direction that I feel is most beneficial for all of us. And I feel it here. We're not even in the same room, but I can feel resonance with you, and I can feel that you're a good person. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I hope everyone listening checks out what Jonathan's doing. Everything's linked in the show notes. On the business side, he's Whitebeard Strategies, and you can just go to his name, Jonathan Mast. It's Jonathan, Jon. And all his socials, like I said, he's everywhere, and it's free content and so helpful. So I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I've truly enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah. Okay, guys, until next time, take care. Talk soon. Peace. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay immersed in the infinite drop.